Ever feel like you're just like, I don't know, wading through mud? Even when you're trying to make good things happen, like you're totally burned out before you even begin?
Yeah, it's a common feeling, actually,
Really?
especially when we're talking about those internal struggles,
Right.
the ones we face down every day.
Hmm.
That's the battlefield. Isaiah 59.17 drops us right into.
You know, I wouldn't normally picture like an ancient poem
Right.
about spiritual warfare, but
Yeah.
this one really paints a picture.
Oh, it's vivid.
Yeah.
God isn't just giving advice
Mhm.
from the sidelines. It's like he's strapping on armor alongside us.
Yeah, I like that.
And each piece isn't just for show. There's symbolic tools we can use.
So the first one that jumped out at me was this idea of righteousness being like a breastplate. What do you make of that?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
A breastplate was essential protection for a
Right.
soldier's heart.
Mhm.
In the same way, righteousness acts as a shield, especially when we're feeling vulnerable
Yeah.
or unworthy.
So it's not just about checking off
Right.
good deeds on a list, but something deeper.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about aligning ourselves with God's purpose, trusting in his grace, even when we mess up.
Yeah.
The text even calls out guilt specifically,
Real.
almost like it's saying,
Oh.
hey, recognize that for the attack it is.
Mm.
Don't let it disarm you.
Wow, that really changes how I see those feelings of not being good enough that can creep in.
Right.
It's like they're trying to take us out of the fight before we even start.
And that's why this armor is so essential.
Okay.
Next, we have the helmet of salvation, protecting our minds.
Our command center,
Yes.
which feels especially important these days.
Oh, absolutely.
Information overload,
Right.
constant pressure to achieve.
Yeah.
It's a lot to handle.
It is.
Yeah.
The enemy, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
knows that if our minds are consumed by doubt,
Right.
fear, and anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
we become paralyzed.
Yeah.
We start to question everything,
Oh, yeah.
including our own salvation.
So this helmet, it's like that unshakable confidence,
Yeah.
that deep down knowing
Mm-hmm.
that we are saved, we are loved, no matter what those doubts try to tell us.
Exactly. It's that inner knowing that keeps us grounded,
Okay.
even in the middle of a storm of thoughts and emotions.
I'm really feeling the power of this imagery.
Right.
We've got our heart protected, our minds are secure, but where do we find the energy
That's the
to
question.
actually fight these battles day after day? That's where I sometimes struggle.
You've hit on something crucial.
Yeah.
That's where zeal comes in.
Okay.
It's not a physical piece of armor,
Right.
but rather a cloak,
Okay.
a covering of passion and purpose.
That makes sense. But honestly, it's that initial spark, that zeal, that I find hardest to hold on to sometimes.
Right.
Life gets in the way, you get tired, discouraged.
It's a common struggle.
Is it?
We're wired to conserve energy, not be on all the time,
Right.
but the image of God himself being clothed in zeal. It's like he's saying, I'm all in on this fight with you.
Wow.
Don't lose heart.
It's like having that teammate who's always got your back, always fired up, even
Yeah.
when you're running on fumes.
And that backing, that shared passion becomes fuel for us.
Okay.
It reminds us that we're not alone
Yeah.
in our pursuit of what's good, what's life-giving.
Now you're talking. It's like having that reminder that even small acts of courage, of kindness,
Yes.
they all contribute to something much bigger.
Absolutely.
But before we get ahead of ourselves,
Yeah.
let's pause here for a moment. We've covered a lot of ground already, and I want our listeners to really sit with these powerful ideas. You know, it's easy to think about this whole like putting
Okay.
on the armor thing as something
Yeah.
we do once and we're good.
Right.
But the text really emphasizes this idea of daily renewal,
Yes.
of consciously choosing to put on the armor each day.
Right.
What do you think about that?
It's a brilliant point
Yeah.
because it's not like we just fight this one big battle
Right.
and then we're like, okay, we're good. We won.
We're done.
Yeah. It's the
Yep.
daily
Right.
choices,
Right.
the small acts of courage,
Mm-hmm.
the moments where we're like, no, I'm going to choose faith over fear.
Right.
Those are the moments.
Absolutely. It's like before we even reach for our phones in the morning,
Yes.
before that to-do list takes over,
Right.
we have this opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to ground ourselves in something stronger.
It's a powerful shift in perspective.
Right.
You know, to start each day being like,
Yeah.
I'm not alone in this.
Mm.
God is with me,
Mm-hmm.
and he's given me everything I need to face whatever comes my way.
That really resonates with me.
Mhm.
I've definitely felt the difference on days when I make that conscious choice to approach things differently.
Right.
But for someone listening who might be thinking,
Yeah.
okay, that sounds great, but how do I actually do that?
Right.
in the midst of a crazy busy life, what would you say?
That's the question, isn't it?
Right.
And it's so personal for each of us.
Right.
But I think it starts with awareness.
Okay.
Just taking those few moments to acknowledge that we're in a spiritual battle.
Right.
That there are forces at play that want to distract us, discourage us, keep us from living out our full potential.
So it's about being intentional.
Yeah.
Even for a few minutes, about recognizing that this is a real thing, this spiritual battle. It's not just something people talked about thousands of years ago.
Exactly. And then connecting that awareness to the specific armor we've been talking about. So, for example, that feeling of not being good enough.
Right.
You had mentioned that earlier. That can be a direct attack on our righteousness, on that secure feeling of being covered by God's grace.
So instead of getting bogged down in those feelings, we can choose to put on that breastplate of righteousness. It's like reminding ourselves, hold on, my worth isn't defined by my mistakes or my shortcomings.
Yes.
I'm a child of God, loved and accepted exactly as I am.
Beautifully said.
Right.
And it's not about denying those feelings or pretending they don't exist.
Right.
It's about choosing a different perspective, a different source of strength.
And that's where the helmet of salvation comes in, right?
Yes.
That unshakable confidence that we belong, that we're loved no matter what. It's like this invisible force field around our minds, deflecting all the negativity and doubt that tries to creep in.
I love that image.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
Right.
When we are secure in our identity, in who God created us to be, it changes how we face everything.
Right.
We can approach our challenges with courage and conviction, knowing that we're not defined by our circumstances or our emotions.
Okay, this is all making so much sense.
Okay.
But we haven't forgotten about the cloak of zeal, have we? It's not enough to just be protected, to be secure. We also have to be actively engaged in the fight, right?
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
And that's where it all comes together. Zeal isn't just about enthusiasm or excitement. It's about living our lives with purpose, with that fire in our belly that says, I'm here to make a difference.
So how do we tap into that? How do we keep that zeal burning bright, especially when life throws its curveballs? And we're feeling depleted.
That's a great question. And honestly, it's something I'm always working on myself.
Right.
But I think it goes back to that connection with God when we're in tune with his heart.
Yeah.
With his desire to see goodness and justice and love when out in the world. It fuels our own zeal.
It's like we're plugging into a power source that's way bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And when we're fueled by that, even the smallest acts of kindness, the moments when we choose courage over comfort, they become part of something so much bigger.
It's like we're each given this unique set of armor, tailor-made for the battles we're called to fight. And the world needs us to show up fully suited up and ready to engage.
And that's what I find so exciting about this whole concept of spiritual warfare. It's not about passive waiting for a better day. It's about active participation in creating that better day. It's about being agents of change, warriors of light, and knowing that we have the best equipment and the most powerful ally.
I love that.
Yes.
It's like, there are going to be battles, but we don't have to face them alone. And we don't have to face them unprepared.
Exactly. And recognizing the reality of the battle, understanding the weapons that we have at our disposal. That's the first step to really walking in victory day by day.
We've talked about the armor, the daily practice of putting it on, but there's a part of me that's still wondering, like, if we're in a spiritual battle, who or what are we actually battling? It feels kind of important to know who we're up against.
You're right. It's not enough to just know, like, the equipment. You got to understand the battlefield, too.
Exactly. So spill the tea. Who is the enemy in this epic showdown?
Well, that's where things get a little bit nuanced. Because unlike a traditional battle, we're not dealing with a tangible enemy. You know, we're talking about unseen forces, influences that try to steer us off course.
Okay, so less like hand-to-hand combat. More like a battle for our minds and hearts.
Precisely. Think of it this way. Those insidious doubts that nagging negativity, those temptations that pull us away from what we know is good for us.
Right.
Those are the enemy's tactics.
Wow. That's actually kind of sneakier.
Right.
When you think about it.
Yeah.
We don't always recognize those things for what they are.
Exactly. We think, oh, it's just me being negative, or...
Right. I'm just having a bad day.
I'm having a bad day.
Yeah, it's Monday.
It's Monday, or everybody feels this way sometimes.
Right.
And while those things can be true,
right,
we have to kind of discern
right,
when are those thoughts and feelings trying to sabotage us.
Yeah.
To keep us from our full potential.
It's like the enemy wants us to underestimate the battle. Think we're fighting alone so we don't even try to resist.
Exactly. But when we recognize
right,
that these negative patterns, this self-sabotage, is part of a larger spiritual struggle, it changes how we respond.
Right.
We put on the armor, we stand firm, and we remember who's fighting alongside us.
So when that wave of not good enough hits, or that temptation to just give up seems overwhelming, that's when we need to remember this isn't just me being weak, this is a tactic.
Yes.
And I have what it takes to overcome it.
And that's where the different pieces of armor come into play. You know, that feeling of inadequacy.
Right.
Put on the breastplate of righteousness.
Right.
That reminder of your true identity as a child of God, loved and accepted unconditionally.
And those doubts that try to cloud your mind, tell you you're not capable, not worthy. Helmet of salvation time.
Exactly. It's about taking authority over those thoughts.
Right.
And aligning ourselves with something bigger, something stronger than those negative influences.
It's almost like we have to become warriors of our own minds and hearts, choosing what we allow to take root and grow.
And that's where that cloak of zeal becomes so essential.
Right.
Because it's not enough to just defend.
Right.
We have to be actively engaged in living out our purpose, pursuing what we're passionate about.
Because when we're fired up, pursuing those things that light us up, it's harder for those negative influences to take hold.
Absolutely. It's like that fire within us creates a force field of its own, pushing back against the darkness.
I like it.
Yeah. And it reminds us that even when the battles are tough, we're fighting for something truly worthwhile.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It's like we've taken this ancient text and unearthed a whole strategy for navigating the challenges of everyday life.
And isn't it amazing how relevant this ancient wisdom still is?
Totally.
You know, the battles might look different today.
Yeah.
But the principles remain the same.
So true. So to our listeners, as we wrap up this deep dive, remember this. You are not alone in this. You are a warrior, equipped with everything you need to face whatever comes your way.
Put on your armor.
Yes.
Step into your strength and know that victory is already yours.
And until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep shining your light, warriors.